I met Ellen at a cookout in the summer, standing by the cooler in a yellow sundress, laughing at something somebody said. She had this way of holding eye contact just a beat longer than normal, like she was testing whether you'd look away first. I didn't. And that was my first mistake, because a woman who tests you before she's even said hello is a woman who already knows the game she's playing. I just didn't know I was in one. My name is Joe. I'm 31, born and raised outside Charlotte, North Carolina. I work in commercial HVAC, have since I was 23. Decent job, honest money. I'm not the kind of guy who needs a lot. A place to come home to, someone to share it with, work that keeps my hands busy. That was always enough for me. And Ellen for a while made me think I'd found all three in the same life. We started talking that night and didn't stop. Within 2 weeks we were seeing each other every day. Within 2 months she'd left most of her clothes at my place. By month 7 she'd officially moved in. We never got married, never even talked about it seriously. We were just together. And for a while, that felt like more than enough. Ellen was warm in a way that made you let your guard down without noticing it was happening. She remembered which coffee I liked, how I took my eggs, which t-shirt I wore when I was having a bad day. She'd rub my shoulders when I got home smelling like ductwork and sweat, and she'd do it without being asked. I thought that kind of attention meant something you can't fake. I thought if someone notices the small things, they must care about the big ones too. I was wrong about that. I was wrong about a lot of things with Ellen, but the thing I was most wrong about, the thing that still keeps me awake at 3 in the morning staring at a ceiling that doesn't have answers, is that I believed her twice. Not once, twice. The first time, I can forgive myself for. Everybody gets fooled once. But the second time, the time with the rose petals on my sister's kitchen floor, and the candles and the tears, and her arms wrapped around me so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my spine, I chose to believe that. I walked back into it with my eyes half open, and my gut screaming and my pride whispering that maybe, she really did love me enough to change. She didn't change. She just got better at hiding it. And the distance between the woman who held my face in her hands and swore on God she'd never hurt me again, and the woman whose phone held a message from another man 3 days earlier, asking same spot as always, that distance is where I live now. Somewhere between what I felt and what was real. Somewhere between the version of love she performed and the version I was stupid enough to believe. About 14 months in, a buddy of mine named Marcus threw a big Saturday barbecue at his place out near Lake Norman. Half the neighborhood showed up. Ellen wanted to go, I couldn't. I'd been fighting a nasty flu for 3 days, the kind that pins you to the mattress and makes your bones ache. I told her to go without me, have fun. My sister-in-law Gina was going too, so Ellen would have company. I remember lying in bed that night, half asleep, phone on my chest, waiting for her to text. She did, around 11. Had a great time. Coming home now. Miss you. I smiled at that, closed my eyes. She came in quiet, slipped into bed, kissed my forehead. I could smell beer and bonfire smoke on her hair. Nothing seemed off. Nothing at all. 3 days later, my cousin Derek called. He didn't ease into it. That's not Derek's style. He said, look, I don't know what you want to do with this, but I'm telling you because I'd want to know. Saturday night at Marcus's thing, I saw Ellen outside by the fire pit with some guy. They were kissing. The ground dropped out from under me. I asked who the guy was. Derek didn't know him personally, but somebody told him the name was Tyler, Ellen's ex, from before me. I asked if he was sure, if maybe it was a hug or something that looked like more than it was. He got quiet for a second. Then he said, Joe, man, it wasn't a hug. I sat in my truck in the driveway for 20 minutes before I went inside. Ellen was in the kitchen making dinner, humming to herself. Just the sight of her standing there, normal, like nothing had happened, made my stomach turn so hard I tasted metal. I asked her straight, did anything happen at Marcus's barbecue? She froze. Just for a second, but I caught it. Then she laughed, this light, careless laugh, and said, what do you mean? I told her what Derek told me. Her face changed, not guilty exactly, more like someone calculating. She put the spatula down and said Tyler had kissed her out of nowhere. That she pushed him off. That it lasted 2 seconds and she didn't want to tell me because she knew I'd overreact. I asked her why she didn't push him off before Derek saw it. She didn't have an answer for that. Over the next few days, the story kept shifting depending on who I talked to. Gina said she'd seen Ellen and Tyler talking for a long time by the trucks, away from the main group. Another friend said they'd disappeared together and came back separately. Ellen kept swearing it was just a surprise kiss, that she'd had no control over it, that she'd never do anything to hurt me. But every version from someone who was there made her version smaller. Every conversation I had shaved another layer off the story she'd built, until what was left wasn't a story at all. It was a frame with nothing inside it. The fight lasted days. She cried. She begged. She dropped to her knees on the kitchen floor one night and grabbed my hands and told me I was the best thing in her life and she couldn't lose me. I believed the tears were real. I just didn't believe the words anymore. So I ended it, told her to pack her things and go. That was the hardest thing I'd ever done. Not because I didn't want to, because I did want to forgive her and I knew I couldn't. My pride wouldn't let me. The thought of her kissing that man where people I knew could see it, people who would look at me and wonder what kind of fool stays after that. I couldn't carry that. She left. The apartment went quiet. Her shampoo was still in the shower. The dent in the couch where she used to sit was still there. I couldn't throw any of it away because throwing it away meant it was real, and I wasn't ready for it to be real. I was about to spend 3 weeks learning what real loneliness felt like. And then my sister was going to call. And then Ellen was going to fill my sister's kitchen with rose petals and candles and the most convincing performance of love I will ever see in my life. And the whole time, there was a message on her phone from a man named Tyler, sent 3 days before the petals, 3 days before the tears, 3 days before she held me and swore on God. 4 words. Same spot as always. The 10 days after she left were a kind of quiet I hope I never experience again. Not peaceful quiet. The opposite. The kind that presses against your eardrums from the inside, like the apartment itself was holding its breath and waiting for me to break. Ellen didn't leave quietly. She spent that first week and a half trying to win me back with the desperation of someone who can see the exit closing and is willing to throw her body against the door. She texted paragraphs I couldn't finish reading. She called at hours that made it clear she wasn't sleeping. She showed up at my job twice. The first time she caught me in the parking lot on my lunch break and stood in front of my truck with her arms crossed, blocking the door, asking me to just listen for 5 minutes. I listened. She talked in circles. I said nothing. She left crying. The second time was worse. She walked into the supply warehouse while I was loading a van, mascara smeared, voice cracking, asking me to please just come outside and talk. My co-workers pretended not to notice, but I felt every pair of eyes in that building land on me and stay there. The humiliation of that moment, the public display of something I was trying to keep private, pushed me further away than anything she'd said or done since the barbecue. After that, the attempts slowed. The texts went from paragraphs to one-liners. The calls dropped from 3 a day to 1 every couple of days. Then they stopped altogether, and I was left alone in the apartment we'd shared, staring at the dent in the couch where she used to sit. Her shampoo still in the shower because I couldn't bring myself to throw it out. Her vanilla lotion still on the nightstand because some mornings I'd roll over half asleep and reach for it without thinking, like my body hadn't gotten the memo that she was gone. I barely slept. I'd go to work, move through the day on autopilot, come home, sit in the dark. My buddy Ray tried to get me out a couple of times. I kept turning him down. I didn't want to see anyone. I didn't want to explain what happened. I didn't want to watch someone try to find the right thing to say when there was no right thing. I just wanted to sit in the wreckage and figure out when it would stop feeling like the walls were closing in. The pillow on her side of the bed still had the faint scent of that vanilla lotion. I left it there, didn't wash it, didn't move it. Just let it sit on the mattress like a bookmark in a story I was too stubborn to finish and too weak to close. 3 weeks. That's how long the silence lasted before everything changed again. On a Saturday afternoon, my phone buzzed. It was my sister Nina. She said she needed me to come by her place, that she had something important to tell me. I asked what it was. She wouldn't say. "Joe, it's personal. I'd rather talk face to face." I told her I wasn't in the mood. She pushed. She said Sammy, my nephew, her 4-year-old, kept asking about me. She said he missed his godfather. She said just come for a little while, please. It'll be good for you. Nina and I have always been close. She's 2 years older, always looking out for me, always in my business in that big sister way that's annoying until you realize she's usually right about everything. But that day I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to shower, didn't want to get dressed, didn't want to drive 20 minutes to her house and pretend I was functional. I told her flat out, "Nina, whatever it is, just tell me on the phone. I'm not coming." She wouldn't drop it, kept insisting, kept saying please, kept circling back to Sammy like she was using my own godson as a crowbar to pry me off the couch. At one point I asked if it had anything to do with Ellen. She said no, something else entirely. A family thing she didn't want to get into over the phone. Against every instinct I had, I went, dragged myself off the couch, took a shower for the first time in 2 days, put on jeans and a clean shirt, and drove to Nina's house. When I pulled up, the first thing I noticed was that her husband Mike's truck wasn't in the driveway. The house looked quiet. No TV noise through the windows, no Sammy running around the yard. I walked up to the porch and knocked. Nothing for a few seconds. Then footsteps. The door opened. It wasn't Nina, it was Ellen. She was standing there in a dress I'd never seen before, hair done, makeup perfect, smiling like she'd been waiting behind that door for an hour, rehearsing the exact expression she'd wear when it opened. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like something had been cut loose inside my chest. I took a step back. "What are you doing here? Where's Nina?" She reached for my hand. "Come inside. I have something for you." My whole body locked up. I could feel the setup the way you feel humidity before rain, this heavy, charged awareness that something has been arranged and you've walked into the center of it. I said her name. "Ellen, what is this?" She grabbed my wrist with both hands and pulled me through the door before I could think. She closed it behind us. The living room was dim. She'd drawn the curtains, and on the floor, scattered from the hallway to the kitchen, there were rose petals, red and pink, covering the hardwood like confetti at an event nobody had been invited to. The air smelled like candles, that warm, sweet, waxy scent that fills a room when too many of them are burning at once. She led me by the hand toward the kitchen. I let her, not because I wanted to, but because my brain was 3 steps behind my body and my body was already moving. When we got there, I saw the table set for 2. White tablecloth, wine glasses, candles lit in the center, plates already served. She'd made steak with roasted potatoes and asparagus, my favorite meal, the one she always made on my birthday. I looked at the table, looked at the petals on the floor, looked at her. What is this supposed to mean? She smiled. Her eyes were already wet. I made dinner for us. I wanted to do something special. You set all this up. You got Nina to lie to me and drag me out here for this. My voice was flat, but inside, everything was burning. You think rose petals and candles are going to fix what you did? She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the perfume she only wore when she wanted something. Joe, please, just give me one night, one dinner. That's all I'm asking. I told her I was leaving, turned toward the door. That's when she grabbed me from behind, wrapped her arms around my chest so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my back, pressed her face between my shoulder blades, and just held on. Like she was gripping the edge of something and letting go meant falling. "Please don't go," she said, and her voice cracked in a way that sounded like something tearing. "I love you. I love you so much. If I made a mistake, I'm sorry. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just please don't walk away." I should have peeled her arms off. I know that. I should have walked through that door, driven home, and changed my number. Every rational thought I had was pointing at the exit. But rational thought and a woman's arms around your chest at the exact moment when you've been alone for 3 weeks and you still haven't washed her pillow are 2 things that don't exist in the same room. One of them wins. And that night, standing in my sister's kitchen with rose petals under my shoes, and candles flickering on a table set for 2, and the woman I'd been missing so badly it felt like a physical injury holding on to me like I was the last solid thing in her life. The rational thought lost. I turned around. She looked up at me. Tears cutting through her makeup, that perfect face crumbling, her hands gripping the front of my shirt. I kissed her, not because I'd forgiven her, Not because I believed her, because my body remembered her before my brain could stop it, because 3 weeks of silence and a vanilla-scented pillow and an empty couch had eroded me down to something that couldn't say no, to the one thing that used to make the silence stop. We stood there for a long time, holding each other in that dim kitchen with the candles throwing shadows on the walls. She whispered that she loved me, that she'd never mess up again, that she'd do anything. And I wanted to believe every word. God, I wanted to believe them. We sat down and ate. She'd cooked my favorite meal and she'd cooked it well, and we barely talked during dinner, but it didn't feel awkward. It felt like something unclenching, like exhaling after holding your breath so long your lungs burn. Afterward, I said 2 words that changed everything. Let's go home. She looked at me like I'd just handed her something she'd been reaching for with both hands for weeks. Are you serious? I nodded. She grabbed her purse so fast she nearly knocked over a candle. On the drive back, she told me the whole thing was Nina's idea, that Nina had seen how miserable we both were and decided to intervene, that Ellen had been desperate, didn't know what else to do, and Nina offered her house and helped plan the dinner. I drove and listened and didn't say much. Her voice was lighter than it had been in weeks. Like a weight had been lifted off her and placed onto me, except I didn't feel it yet because I was too busy feeling something else. Relief. Terrible, dangerous, unearned relief. That night we were together again. In the morning she was lying next to me, head on my chest, drawing circles on my arm with her finger. She asked if this meant we were really back together. I said yes, but I had one condition. If you ever do anything like that again, with Tyler or anyone else, it's done. No second chances, no conversations, no explanations. Done. She swore on everything, on her mother, on God, on us. She said Tyler meant nothing, that she'd already blocked his number. She held my face in her hands and said, "You're the only man I want, I promise you that." I wanted to believe her. And I'm going to be honest about what happened next, because this is the part where I became responsible for my own destruction. I chose to believe her. Not because the evidence supported it, not because my gut agreed, not because the versions of the story had lined up, or the timeline made sense, or any of the doubts I'd been carrying had been answered. I chose to believe her because believing her was easier than being alone. Because the alternative to trust was an empty apartment and a vanilla pillow, and a silence so thick it felt like drowning. Because my pride, the same pride that made me end it in the first place, flipped sides when loneliness squeezed hard enough, and suddenly staying felt like strength instead of weakness. Ellen moved back in that weekend, unpacked like she'd never left, hung her clothes in the closet, put her products back in the bathroom, placed her little ceramic angel figurine on the windowsill above the kitchen sink, the one her grandmother had given her, the one she said she'd never leave behind. For a while things were good. She was more attentive, more affectionate, more present. She cooked more, she texted me during the day. She stopped going out as much. It felt like she was trying to prove something, and for a while I let myself believe she was proving it. But you don't fully recover from something like that, not really. You just learn to push it to a corner of your mind and hope it stays there. And some nights, when the house was quiet and she was asleep beside me and there was nothing left to distract me, the doubt would crawl back out of that corner and sit on my chest like something alive. I'd think about Tyler, about what really happened at that barbecue, about whether Derek only saw part of it, about whether the surprise kiss was the whole story or just the version she could live with telling. These thoughts came at night, always at night. Because daylight is full of motion and noise and things to do, and darkness is when the questions you've been outrunning all day finally catch up. I never said anything, never brought it up. I'd made my decision to take her back, and reopening the wound felt like admitting I'd made the wrong one. So I swallowed the doubt, smiled in the morning, went to work, came home, kissed her, and pretended the thing eating me alive from the inside wasn't there. 4 months passed, maybe 5. Long enough for the routine to feel normal again. Long enough for the apartment to feel like ours instead of just mine. Long enough for me to almost convince myself that the worst was behind us. Almost. Because on a Thursday night in late October, I woke up at 2:30 in the morning to use the bathroom, And by 3:15, I was sitting on the edge of the bathtub with her phone in my hand, reading messages that rearranged every single thing I thought I knew about the woman sleeping 10 feet away. And the dinner at Nina's, the rose petals, the candles, the tears, the I love you so much, the please don't walk away. Every sacred, beautiful, desperate second of that night, all of it was about to become the cruelest thing anyone had ever done to me. I didn't plan to go through her phone. I want to be clear about that, not because it matters, but because the version where I was looking for something feels different from what actually happened. And what actually happened is worse. I wasn't suspicious that night. I wasn't lying awake running scenarios. I wasn't checking her stories or monitoring her texts or doing any of the things a man does when he's already halfway to the truth and looking for the rest. I was getting water. That's it. 2:30 in the morning, dry mouth, half asleep. I walked to the kitchen, stood at the sink, drank a glass in the dark. The moonlight was coming through the window and hitting the little ceramic angel on the sill. And for some reason, that made me think about the night at Nina's house. The candles, the petals, her voice breaking when she said please. I stood there thinking about that, about how close I'd come to walking out and how glad I was that I didn't, and I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Gratitude. I was grateful to be here, grateful she'd fought for us, grateful the worst was over. I set the glass down and walked back to the bedroom. She was asleep on her side, facing the wall, breathing that deep, heavy rhythm she always fell into. Her phone was on the nightstand, screen down, plugged into the charger. She never used a passcode, just her fingerprint. I don't know what made me pick it up. I've replayed that moment 1,000 times, and I still can't name the thing that moved my hand. It wasn't suspicion. It wasn't a sound, or a sign, or a feeling I'd been carrying. It was something smaller than that, something more like a door in the back of my mind that I'd been leaning against for months. A door I'd sealed shut the night I chose to take her back, and somewhere between the kitchen sink and the bedroom doorway, standing in the dark holding nothing but a memory of rose petals and a belly full of water, that door swung open. I picked up the phone, walked to her side of the bed, took her hand gently, barely touching, pressed her thumb to the screen. It unlocked. She didn't move, didn't twitch, kept breathing that same heavy rhythm. I carried the phone to the bathroom, shut the door, locked it, sat on the edge of the tub, and started scrolling. I didn't have to look far. It was right there in her messages. Not buried, not hidden in some secret app or disguised under a fake name. A conversation thread with a contact saved under a single letter. T. And the moment I opened it, before I read a single word, I knew. The way you know a room is on fire before you see flames, just from the heat coming through the door. The thread was long, weeks and weeks of messages, and the most recent one had been sent that same afternoon. My hands went cold. My chest tightened like someone had wrapped a belt around my ribs and pulled. I started reading from the bottom up, message by message, and every single one made the next one worse. Times, locations, inside jokes, the casual shorthand of two people who have been seeing each other regularly and have stopped bothering to pretend they aren't. He'd ask when she was free. She'd give him a window. He'd confirm. She'd send a smiley face. Simple, efficient, like scheduling a haircut. There were photos I didn't open because I was afraid of what I'd see. There were voice messages I didn't play because I was afraid of what I'd hear. There were conversations that stretched back weeks, then months, and the further I scrolled, the worse the math got, because the dates on these messages didn't start after the reconciliation. They didn't start after she moved back in. They went back further than that. They went back to before Nina's kitchen. I found it about halfway up the thread. A message from Tyler, sent on a Tuesday afternoon. 3 days before the rose petals. 3 days before the candles. 3 days before she stood behind me in my sister's kitchen and pressed her face between my shoulder blades and said, "I love you so much. Please don't walk away." 4 words on a screen. Same spot as always? Her reply was a time. 2:15. Nothing else. No explanation, no context, no hesitation. Just a time. The way you confirm something that's been confirmed so many times, it doesn't need words anymore. I sat on the edge of that bathtub, and read those 4 words over and over until they stopped looking like English and started looking like the answer to every question I'd been swallowing for 5 months. Same spot as always. Always. Not once. Not occasionally. Always. A word that means this has been happening long enough to have a routine, a location, a rhythm. A word that means the woman who cooked my birthday meal in my sister's kitchen and cried real tears and swore on God and held my face in her hands and promised me forever had, 3 days earlier, confirmed a standing appointment with the man she swore she'd cut off. I kept scrolling. The messages from the days after the reconciliation were the ones that destroyed me most completely because they showed something I hadn't anticipated. She didn't stop seeing Tyler when she moved back in. She didn't even pause. The messages continued seamlessly, the same casual scheduling, the same smiley faces, the same easy back and forth, layered right on top of the texts she was sending me. "Good morning, baby. Miss you. Can't wait to get home." Those were the messages I received, and sandwiched between them, invisible, running parallel like a second set of tracks under the same train, were the messages to Tyler. She was texting us both, sometimes within the same hour, sometimes within the same 10 minutes. A message to me about dinner plans, then a message to him about meeting at 2, a heart emoji to me, then a timestamp to him. My life and his life running side by side inside her phone like 2 lanes of traffic she was navigating without ever signaling. I thought about the afternoons she said she was going to the gym, but came home without having broken a sweat. I thought about the phone calls she stepped outside to take, the ones she came back from smiling. I thought about the Tuesday she said she had a dentist appointment, and I'd thought it was strange she didn't mention which dentist. I'd noticed all of those things, filed them under probably nothing, carried them in a folder in the back of my mind labeled, "Trust her, you promised." Probably nothing was everything. The folder was full, and the promise was a lie I'd made to myself about a woman who was making the same lie to me every single day. I scrolled further, past the reconciliation, past the 10 days she spent chasing me, past the breakup. And there, in the messages from the week of the barbecue, I found the second thing that broke me. The day after Marcus's party, the day after Derek called me and told me what he'd seen, the day I confronted Ellen in the kitchen, and she said Tyler had kissed her out of nowhere, that she'd pushed him off, that it was nothing. That same night, after I'd gone to bed with my stomach in knots and my future uncertain, she'd sent Tyler a message. He knows. Someone saw us. I handled it, but he's pissed. Lay low for a bit. Lay low. Not "I'm sorry," not "this was a mistake," not "we need to stop." Lay low. The language of someone managing a situation, not ending one. The language of someone who saw my pain as a logistical problem that needed to be contained, not a wound that needed to be addressed. And Tyler's reply, sent 11 minutes later, "How long?" Her response, "A week or 2. He'll calm down. He always does. He always does." 3 words that told me this wasn't the first time they'd had this conversation, that this wasn't the first close call. That somewhere in the history before the barbecue, before Derek's phone call, before any of it reached me, there had been other moments where the secret almost surfaced and she'd pushed it back down, and she'd done it enough times to know the pattern. He gets upset. He calms down. Life continues. The system works. I was the system. My forgiveness was a feature she'd learned to rely on. My love was a reset button she pressed whenever the machine glitched. I put the phone down on the edge of the tub and pressed both hands against my face. The bathroom was silent except for the hum of the vent fan and the sound of my own breathing, which had gone shallow and fast, the breathing of a man whose body is processing something his mind hasn't fully accepted yet. I picked the phone back up because I needed to know everything. I needed to see the whole shape of it, not just the parts that hurt, but the architecture. How she built it, how she maintained it, how she kept 2 lives running simultaneously without ever crossing the wires. The system was simple. Tyler was Tuesdays and occasional Saturdays when I worked overtime. She'd leave the apartment at 1:30, come back by 4, shower before I got home. The gym excuse was the most common. Sometimes it was a friend from work. Sometimes it was errands that took longer than expected. Small, plausible stories delivered with casual confidence, the kind of lies that are hardest to catch because they sound exactly like the truth. And the night at Nina's house, the dinner, the performance. I scrolled to the messages from that week and reconstructed the timeline with the precision of a man dissecting his own autopsy. Tuesday, same spot as always. She met Tyler at 2:15. Wednesday, she texted Nina and started planning the dinner. The menu, the setup, the flowers, what time to tell me to come. Two women planning a reconciliation in one thread while the other thread, 10 swipes away, held the confirmation of a rendezvous that had happened the day before. Thursday, she bought the dress, the one I'd never seen before, the one she wore when she opened Nina's door with that rehearsed smile and wet eyes. She also texted Tyler that afternoon, "Missing you already." He replied with a heart. Friday, she set up Nina's kitchen, rose petals, candles, tablecloth, wine. My favorite meal, prepped and ready. She sent me the text that evening through Nina's phone. "Joe, it's personal. I'd rather talk face to face." And she waited behind that door like an actress waiting for the curtain to rise. Saturday, the performance, the petals, the tears, the arms around my chest, the "please don't go," the "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you," and then the drive home, and then the bed, and then the morning, her head on my chest, tracing circles on my arm, asking, "Are we really back together?" Sunday, she texted Tyler, "We're good. He took me back. Give me a few days to settle in. We're good. He took me back." The words of a strategist reporting a successful mission, not a woman who'd just been reunited with the love of her life, not someone overwhelmed with relief and gratitude and the determination to start fresh. A strategist, reporting status, confirming that both operations were back online. I sat on that bathtub for over 40 minutes, maybe longer. I read every message in the thread, some of them twice because my brain kept rejecting what my eyes delivered, kept trying to find an alternate reading, a context that made it less than what it was. But there was no alternate reading. There was no context. There was just a woman who had been lying to me every day for months, who had used my sister's home as a stage, who had weaponized my loneliness and my love and my family's trust, and who had done it all while maintaining a parallel relationship with a man she'd sworn she'd never speak to again. The dinner wasn't a gesture of love, it was a strategy. She wasn't trying to win me back because she couldn't live without me. She was trying to keep both lives running, me at home, Tyler on the side. The apartment, the routine, the stability I gave her, and the other thing, whatever Tyler gave her that I didn't. She wanted it all, and she'd built an entire production to make sure she got it. The rose petals, the candles, the tears, my sister's kitchen. My nephew's name used to lure me off the couch. All of it was choreography. Every second of that night had been designed not to save a relationship, but to preserve a system that required my ignorance to function. And the cruelest part, the part that sat in my stomach like acid eating through metal. She'd involved Nina, my sister, the person who loved me most in the world after my mother. She'd sat in Nina's kitchen and cried, and told her I was the love of her life. And Nina had believed her because why wouldn't she? Because the tears were real, and the words were convincing, and nobody expects the woman begging for a second chance to be scheduling her next meeting with another man 3 days before the petals hit the floor. Ellen didn't just lie to me. She recruited my family into the lie without them knowing. She turned Nina's trust into a prop. She turned my sister's love for me into a tool. She used every good thing in my life as material to build the cage she kept me in. I stood up from the bathtub. My legs felt foreign, like they belonged to someone else, and had been loaned to me for the night. I looked at myself in the dark mirror across the bathroom. The face looking back didn't look angry. It didn't look sad. It looked like a man who'd just been handed the answer to a question he'd been asking for 5 months, and discovered the answer was worse than anything the question had implied. I unlocked the bathroom door, walked back to the bedroom. She was still asleep, still peaceful, still breathing that deep, heavy rhythm. The rhythm of a person with nothing pressing on her conscience at 3 in the morning. The rhythm of a woman who'd figured out how to carry 2 lives inside one body and sleep soundly in both. I stood in that doorway for 10 seconds, 15, long enough to feel the full weight of what I was about to do. long enough to say goodbye to the version of her I'd been in love with, the version that had never existed, the version that was built entirely out of performances I'd been too lonely and too hopeful to see through. Then I turned on the light. She flinched, rolled onto her back, squinting against the brightness like someone pulled from deep water. For a second, she just looked confused, eyes unfocused, mouth slightly open. That soft, disoriented expression people have when they're dragged out of sleep too fast to remember where they are. Then her eyes focused, first on me, then on the phone in my hand. And I watched her face change the way you watch weather change on a plane. Fast. Total. The confusion drained out and something else flooded in. Something sharp and immediate and almost animal. Not guilt. Recognition. The specific recognition of a person who knows exactly what's been found and has about 4 seconds to decide which version of themselves to become next. "Joe?" Her voice was hoarse. "Careful. Why are you up? What are you doing?" I didn't answer. I stood at the foot of the bed, holding her phone with the screen still glowing, Tyler's thread still open, and I let the silence do what silence does when the truth is already in the room and nobody's said it yet. I let it build. I let it press against the walls and the ceiling and the space between us until the only way to break it was to break everything. "Joe, what are you doing with my phone?" I said it slow. "You've been talking to him." She sat up, pulled the sheet to her chest like armor. "Talking to who?" "Tyler." The name landed like something thrown. She blinked once, twice. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. And I saw it happening behind her eyes, the same thing I'd seen in the kitchen after the barbecue, the same thing I'd seen at Nina's house, the same machinery that had been running underneath every conversation we'd had for 5 months. Not guilt. Calculation. The rapid, silent assembly of a defense from whatever materials were available. "I don't know what you think you saw, but you're wrong." Her voice had shifted. Steadier now. Controlled. The voice of someone stepping onto a stage they've performed on before. "You went through my phone. You've been seeing him, meeting him for months." I held the phone up, screen facing her. Same spot as always. "That's what he wrote you. 3 days before you put rose petals on my sister's floor and cried on your knees telling me you loved me." Something cracked in her expression. Half a second. Then she recovered. She swung her legs off the bed and came toward me fast. Not to talk, to take the phone. She lunged at my hand, fingers closing around my wrist, nails catching the skin on the back of my hand. I pulled away. She came again, more desperate. Both hands now, grabbing, clawing, trying to pry the phone loose the way someone tries to pry a document out of a fire before it's fully gone. I shoved her off. Not hard, just enough to create space. She stumbled back against the dresser and a picture frame wobbled and tipped. "Give me my phone, Joe." "Why? So you can delete everything?" "There's nothing to delete. You're being paranoid again. You're making something out of nothing, just like last time." She was standing now, hands trembling, voice pitched higher than normal. The performance was crumbling, but she was still gripping the edges of it, holding on with everything she had, like a woman dangling from a ledge who knows the ground is coming, but can't make herself let go. I read one of the messages out loud, word for word. Something Tyler had sent her 2 weeks earlier. Something so specific, so casual, so soaked in the familiarity of a man who'd been with her recently and expected to be again soon, that there was no possible interpretation other than the one staring back at me from that screen. I won't repeat it here. I don't need to. The words don't matter. What matters is that when I finished reading, the room went completely, utterly silent. She stopped moving, stopped reaching, just stood there 5 feet away, breathing hard, her chest rising and falling under that thin sleep shirt, and I saw the exact moment she ran out of stage. The exact moment the last exit closed. Her shoulders dropped 1/2 inch, her chin dipped, her eyes, which had been sharp and calculating 3 seconds ago, went dull. Not sad. Empty. The emptiness of a machine that just ran out of fuel. "It's not what you think," she whispered. I almost laughed. Almost. Because those 5 words, that exact sentence, in that exact tone, I'd heard them before. In this same bedroom, from this same mouth, after the barbecue, after Derek's call, after the first round of tears and promises and swearing on God. It's not what you think, like a script she kept in a drawer for emergencies, like a fire extinguisher labeled break glass in case of getting caught. There's nothing to explain, Ellen. I read everything. You don't understand the whole situation. He kept reaching out to me. I didn't want to. I tried to ignore him, but he wouldn't stop. You gave him times. You confirmed locations. You sent him smiley faces. You texted him we're good. He took me back, the day after you moved back in. Her mouth closed. For 3 seconds, nobody spoke. Then she tried again, one more time, one more version, one more angle. Her voice dropped lower, softer, and she stepped toward me with her hands open, palms up, the gesture of surrender, and she said the words I knew were coming because I'd heard them so many times they'd lost all connection to meaning. Baby, please. I love you. You know I love you. Tyler doesn't mean anything to me. He never did. It was just, I was lonely when we were apart, and he was there and I was weak. That's all it was. Something inside me went cold. Not angry, not sad, not broken. Cold. The kind of cold that doesn't come from temperature. It comes from clarity. The clarity of standing in a room at 3 in the morning and realizing that the woman in front of you actually believes this can work again. That tears and whispered I love yous and the right combination of desperate words will unlock you the way her fingerprint unlocked her phone. That you'll crack open one more time, hold her, forgive her, carry this weight for another few months until the next time she needs you to calm down while she manages the situation. She was looking at me with those wet eyes, those same eyes that had looked up at me in Nina's kitchen, and I understood something that hit me harder than anything on that phone. She wasn't lying about loving me. That was the unbearable part. She probably did love me, in whatever way she was capable of loving someone. The problem was that her love and my love were not the same substance. Mine was a house I'd built and lived in and would have died protecting. Hers was a room she visited when she needed somewhere warm to stand. I looked at the phone in my hand, then at the window. The decision took less than a second. I reared back and threw it. Hard. The phone sailed across the bedroom, hit the window screen, punched through the mesh, cleared the sill and disappeared into the night. I heard it smack the driveway, then skip once across the concrete, then shatter against something solid, the curb or the mailbox post, with a sound like a plate breaking on a tile floor. Sharp, final. The sound of something that was never going to be put back together. Ellen stared at the window, then at me. Her mouth was open, but nothing came out. For the first time since I'd turned on the light, she had no words, no script, no version. Just the wide, stunned expression of someone who'd been managing a situation and suddenly realized the situation had left the building through a second-floor window. Go get it, I said. She didn't move. Not for 3 or 4 seconds. Then something clicked inside her, some instinct louder than pride, and she grabbed her robe off the back of the door, shoved her feet into her slippers, and went. Past me, down the hallway, through the living room. I heard the front door open. Her footsteps on the porch, then the driveway, then nothing. I walked to the front door and locked it, turned the deadbolt, slid the chain. She was out there for maybe 2 minutes before she came back and tried the knob. He rattled but didn't give. Then she knocked. 3 hard, fast knocks, the kind that still had more anger in them than fear. Joe, open the door. I was sitting on the couch in the dark. I didn't answer. She knocked again. Harder. Joe, open the door. It's cold out here. I said nothing. I sat there with my elbows on my knees, hands hanging between my legs, staring at the floor. The apartment was so quiet I could hear the kitchen faucet dripping. That tiny, steady rhythm felt louder than her knocking, felt more real, felt more honest. She moved to the bedroom window. Her voice came through the glass, muffled but desperate. Joe, please. I know you're angry. You have every right, but don't leave me out here. Let me in and we can talk, please. I didn't respond. She went back to the front door. The knocking turned to pounding. The pounding turned to pleading. Her voice climbed higher, wobbled, broke apart. Joe, you can't do this. It's the middle of the night. I don't have my car keys, I don't have anything. Please, baby, just open the door. I sat there. She cried. She apologized. She said she was sorry, so sorry, the worst mistake of her life. She said she'd tell me everything if I just let her in. She said she was freezing. She said she didn't have shoes, just slippers, and the concrete was wet. She said she loved me. She said it over and over, the way you repeat a password at a locked screen, hoping that one of the attempts will be the one that gets through. None of them got through. At some point, maybe an hour later, the pounding stopped. The crying faded to whimpering, then to silence. I heard her sit down on the porch, heard the creak of the wooden step under her weight. I imagined her there, wrapped in that robe, knees pulled to her chest, mascara streaked to her jaw, broken phone in her hand or maybe in pieces at her feet. And I'll be honest, part of me wanted to get up, unlock the door, pull her inside. Not to forgive her, just because the habit of caring for her ran so deep it operated on its own, like a reflex the brain can't override, even when it knows the hand is reaching towards something that burns. But I stayed on that couch, because every time I felt the pull, I ran the timeline. I laid it out in my head like evidence on a table. She kissed Tyler at the barbecue. I confronted her. She cried. I ended it. She spent 10 days chasing me. She recruited my sister. She filled Nina's kitchen with rose petals and candles, and the most convincing tears I've ever seen on a human face. She held me and swore on God. And 3 days before all of that, 3 days before the performance of a lifetime, she'd been with Tyler. Same spot as always. 2:15, smiley face. The dinner wasn't love, it was logistics. The tears weren't remorse, they were strategy. The rose petals weren't romance. They were set dressing for a production designed to keep 2 lives running at the same time. Me at home, Tyler on the side. The stability I provided and the thing he provided that I wasn't supposed to know about. She wanted it all. And she'd built an entire performance using my sister's home, my sister's trust, my own loneliness, my own love to make sure she got it. That thought is what kept me on the couch all night. That's what kept the door locked, not anger, certainty. The cold, clean, irreversible certainty that the woman on the other side of that door had used every genuine thing in my life as material for a lie, and if I opened it, she would find a way to do it again, because she was good at it. She was better at it than anyone I'd ever met. And the only defense I had against someone that good was a deadbolt and the willingness to sit in the dark and let her knock. Dawn came slow. Grey, then blue, then gold. Birds started. A truck passed on the road. I heard Ellen shift on the porch. Around 7, she knocked again. Soft this time. Exhausted. The knock of someone who's spent the night outside and has nothing left but the motion itself. Joe. Please. I got up. Every joint in my body ached from sitting on that couch for 5 hours. I unlocked the deadbolt, slid the chain, opened the door. She looked like a person who'd been through something that left marks the mirror wouldn't show for days. Eyes swollen. Makeup smeared down to her jaw. Lips cracked. Hair flat on one side from leaning against the porch railing. She was holding her robe closed at the throat with one hand. The other hand was empty. She looked at me and her mouth started to form a word. Probably Joe. Probably baby. Probably please. One of the words she always used to start the cycle over. I cut her off before the sound came out. You can come in. You can pack your things. That's it. Her face crumpled like paper held over a flame. Joe, don't. I already did. She stood there on the porch for a long time. I could see her searching, running through every tool, every angle, every emotional lever that had worked before. The tears, the desperation, the I love you, the please, the physical contact, the arms around me, the face pressed into my back. I watched her inventory every weapon she had, and I watched her realize, one by one, that none of them would work. Because the thing they'd always worked on, my willingness to believe, was gone. She'd used it up, spent every last coin of it on a performance that was 3 days too late to be real. She walked past me into the apartment, moved slow, like someone walking through a hospital corridor on the way to a room they don't want to enter. She went to the bedroom, pulled a duffel bag from the closet, started packing. Carefully at first, folding things with the precision of someone trying to maintain dignity in a space that has none left. Then she gave up and just shoved clothes in, handfuls at a time, not looking at what she was grabbing. She swept her toiletries off the bathroom shelf into a plastic bag. She took the framed photo of us from the nightstand, looked at it for a few seconds, then placed it face down and left it. When she got to the kitchen, she stopped at the sink. The ceramic angel was on the windowsill, her grandmother's angel, the thing she'd said she would never leave behind. She picked it up, held it in both hands, and stared at it for a long time. I stood in the hallway and watched her hold that angel. And I thought about all the things she'd held in those same hands. My face when she swore she'd never hurt me. My hands when she dropped to her knees on the kitchen floor. Tyler's messages, sent and received from the same fingers that traced circles on my arm in the morning. Those hands had held everything and meant nothing. She put the angel in the bag, zipped it, walked to the front door without looking at me. In the doorway she stopped, turned halfway, just enough that I could see her profile against the early morning light coming through the door. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I do love you," she said. Quiet, almost a whisper. That part was real. I said nothing. I stood in the hallway of my own apartment, in clothes I'd been wearing since yesterday, with no sleep in my body and no feeling in my chest, and I let the silence answer for me. Because the silence was the only honest thing left in that apartment. She walked out. I heard her call someone from the porch. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up. A door opened, a door closed. The car pulled away. I closed the front door, locked it, stood there with my hand on the deadbolt and my forehead against the wood. The apartment was quiet. Not the dangerous quiet from 3 weeks ago, the kind that presses in and makes you feel like the walls are shrinking. This was different. This was the quiet that comes after something has been removed from a room that was too full, the quiet of space, of air returning to a place that had been held too tight for too long. I walked to the kitchen. The windowsill was empty. The angel was gone, but the faucet was still dripping, that same slow, steady rhythm from the night before. Drip, drip, drip. And for some reason, that sound hit me harder than anything she'd said or done in the last 5 hours. I stood there listening to it. This tiny, honest, mechanical thing that just did what it did, without pretending to be anything else. And I thought about Ellen standing at this same sink, looking out this same window, humming to herself while she washed dishes, performing the role of a woman who was right where she wanted to be. And the whole time she was counting the hours until Tuesday. I called Nina 2 days later. I didn't tell her everything on the phone. Couldn't. Some things need a face across the table to land properly. I just said Ellen and I were done for real this time, and asked if I could come over. She said of course. She said she'd make coffee. She said Sammy had been asking about me. When I got there, Sammy ran at me full speed and wrapped himself around my leg like a barnacle. I picked him up, held him for a second, set him down, and told him to go play. He did. Kids know when adults need the room, even when nobody tells them. Nina and I sat at her kitchen table. The same table, the same chairs, the same room where Ellen had set up candles and rose petals and my favorite meal and the most convincing lie I will ever witness in my life. I could still see where the tablecloth had been. I could still smell the ghost of those candles if I breathed deep enough. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the memory was strong enough to generate its own scent. Either way, sitting in that kitchen felt like returning to the scene of something that should have warning tape around it. I told Nina everything. The phone, the messages, the timeline. Tyler's name saved under a single letter. The dates that proved the affair hadn't stopped after the barbecue, hadn't paused during the breakup, hadn't ended after the reconciliation. The message from 3 days before the dinner. Same spot as always. 2:15. And the one she sent the morning after moving back in. We're good. He took me back. Give me a few days to settle in. Nina listened without interrupting. Her face changed in stages, the way a sky changes before a storm. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something that looked like pain but moved past it into something harder. By the time I finished, her hands were flat on the table and her jaw was set, and her eyes had gone bright in a way that had nothing to do with crying. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. "Joe, I'm so sorry." She sat in this kitchen and cried and told me, "You were the love of her life." And I believed her. I told her it wasn't her fault, and it wasn't. Ellen had fooled her the same way she'd fooled me. The same tears, the same words, the same performance calibrated to hit exactly the right frequency of human compassion. The only difference was Nina didn't have to sleep next to it every night. Nina got to believe the lie from a distance. I had to wear it like a second skin, but Nina didn't let herself off that easy. She sat there pressing her thumbnails into the edge of the table, and I could see her running through the same timeline I'd been running through for days, except from her side. She'd opened her home. She'd planned the menu. She'd helped arrange the petals on the floor and set the candles on the table, and texted me that afternoon pretending it was about a family matter. She'd been part of the stage crew for a production she didn't know was fiction, and the realization of that, the understanding that her love for me had been used as a prop in someone else's scheme, that hit her in a way I hadn't anticipated. She put her hand over her mouth and closed her eyes, and sat like that for about 10 seconds. Then she opened them and said very quietly, "I helped her do this to you." "No," I said. "She used you the same way she used me." Nina shook her head. "But I gave her the house. I gave her the key. I called you and told you to come. I made it happen, Joe." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Listen to me. She would have found another way. If it wasn't your kitchen, it would have been somewhere else. If it wasn't you calling me, it would have been someone else. That's what she does. She finds the softest thing in the room and uses it. You were soft because you love me. That's not a fault, that's what she counted on." Nina cried then. Not a lot, not for long. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand and straightened up and said, in a voice that sounded more like the sister I grew up with than anyone I'd heard in months, "If I ever see that woman again, I'm going to tell her exactly what she is, and I'm not going to be polite about it." I almost smiled. Almost. The weeks after that were heavy in a way I didn't expect. Not the sharp, burning pain of the first breakup, after the barbecue. That had been a clean wound. A single cut you could point to and say there, "That's where it happened." This was different. This was discovering that the wound had never healed, that what I'd thought was recovery was just a bandage applied over an infection that had been spreading the entire time. I kept working, kept showing up. The HVAC jobs didn't stop, because my life had fallen apart. Ducts still needed cleaning, units still needed servicing, and there was something almost medicinal about crawling into a ceiling space with a flashlight and a wrench and focusing on something that could actually be fixed. My body went through the days the way it always had. My mind was somewhere else. I fixed the faucet, the one in the kitchen that had been dripping for months, the one I kept hearing on the nights I sat on the couch alone. I got under the sink with a wrench and tightened the valve, and the dripping stopped, and the kitchen went quiet, and I stood there for a minute listening to the silence and thought, that's one thing that doesn't lie. I threw away her shampoo, didn't wait this time, threw it in the trash the same morning she left, and the vanilla lotion from the nightstand, and the pillow I'd been too weak to wash the first time. I put it all in a bag and carried it to the dumpster behind the building, and dropped it in and walked back inside and didn't look back. I rearranged the bedroom, moved the nightstand to the other side so nothing sat where her phone used to sit, switched the lamp, turned the bed so I slept facing a different wall. Small changes, cosmetic really, but they helped, the way rearranging furniture after someone dies helps. Not because it changes what happened, because it changes what you see when you open your eyes. Ray came over one night with a six-pack and didn't ask a single question, just sat on the couch next to me and watched football. Didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer advice, didn't say "I told you so." Just sat there being present, being solid, doing the one thing a good friend can do when there's nothing to say, which is simply not leaving. I thought about Ellen constantly in those first weeks, not with longing, with bewilderment. I kept running the reconciliation through my head, trying to understand the logic. She'd fought so hard to come back, cried real tears, cooked my favorite meal, held me like letting go would kill her. Why? If she was seeing Tyler the whole time, Why come back at all? She was already out, already free. Nobody forced her to return. The only answer I ever found was that she wanted both. The security of me and the excitement of him, the stableman and the secret, the apartment and the adrenaline. She wanted the life I gave her and the life I didn't know about running parallel, and she was willing to build whatever stage set was necessary to keep both curtains up. It's been about 8 months now. The apartment doesn't smell like her anymore. It just smells like mine. I ran into Nina last Sunday at our mother's house for dinner. She hugged me at the door for a long time. Over dessert, she asked if I was seeing anyone. I said no. She nodded and didn't push. On the drive home, I passed the turn for Marcus's place out near Lake Norman, the barbecue spot, where all of this started. I didn't slow down, didn't glance at it, just kept driving, windows down, radio low, the road ahead empty and dark. There are things I'll carry from this for a long time. The sound of her crying through the locked door. The look on her face when she picked up that ceramic angel for the last time. The way I love you can sound so true coming from someone who doesn't mean it the way you need them to. But the thing I carry most, the one I can't set down, no matter how many months go by, is a single image burned into my memory with the permanence of something that was always meant to stay. Rose petals on a kitchen floor, candlelight, a woman holding onto me like I was the only thing keeping her alive. Had a phone in her pocket, 3 days old, with a message she hadn't deleted from a man she was going to see again the moment I calmed down. Same spot as always? I think about that sometimes, late at night, when the apartment is quiet and the faucet doesn't drip anymore, and there's nothing left to fix. I think about how I stood in that kitchen and believed her, really believed her, with everything I had. And I think about how the saddest part of the whole story isn't that she lied. It's that the lie was so good I would have believed it forever. If I hadn't gotten up to get a glass of water on a Thursday night in October. What would you do in this situation? Be honest, or did this remind you of someone? Tell me in the comments. And if this made you think about your own relationship, I left something in the description that can help you build something stronger. Subscribe if you want more stories like this every day, and share this with someone who needs to hear this story.